All right, what's going on, everybody? How's it going? Welcome back. Happy Monday. It's April 22nd, and as you can see, my special guest is Jeremy is back. Happy to have you again, man. Thanks for gracing the show. So appreciate you joining.
Of
Um,
course.
and you chose a good day, man. We chose a good day to do this episode because it was a wild, and a very weird day in Broncos country. Obviously, we all expected the uniforms, and then there was some breaking news and a lot of things that happened afterwards. So, I guess initial thoughts. We'll start off the bat. Jeremy, what are your thoughts about the new threads?
So with that leak that had come out, I was hoping that those weren't going to be them. And then when I first saw them, I was like, okay, it is them. But again, that picture was just so bad on the leaks
Oh, it's so bad.
that you're just like, okay, it can't be these, right? But then you see the real life ones and you go, oh, okay, that's way better.
Yeah,
It's just this, that that leak was just so bad. I was I gave initially I would give them a B. Um, I was expecting them to not drop the throwbacks until maybe later this week. And then when they did it a half hour later, I was like, ooh, that was probably a bad move because they're so perfect that that's all anybody's gonna want. But
yeah,
as the days gone by, they've grown on me more and more. And I think that they're gonna be cool. Some of like the combos, like that picture that you're showing right now,
yep.
is especially the Garrett Bowles one on the left. It's just like, what is that? But I think if you get the right combos, it will look pretty good.
Yeah, yeah, no, man, me too. I think so. I think it's funny, man, because I look at it like, let me just make sure. Yeah, you go. I feel like they dropped the throwbacks a half hour afterwards because there was a lot of negative stuff going around on Twitter. I mean, there was definitely some people that liked it, but then there was other people that really hated it. And it's funny because they
Oh,
hated it for like that weird stripe they have on the back of the helmet, which is
that's not
weird,
my, yeah,
but it's a lot more subtle, I think, than people think. But
yeah,
I'm kind of right there with you. I mean, it was one of those things. I think the Broncos PR team was kind of in a no-win situation, right? I mean,
yeah.
it was like you're always going to have people's opinions, and I agree with you 100%. Like when that first leak dropped, how bad that looked was vastly different. I mean, even though like when you look at them, they're very similar, but just
Right.
the way that like the colors were, and then they had the weird stitching, which obviously is not actually how they're looking. Yeah, everything was weird. So I do like the fact that they can do a lot of combos, but I think a lot of these combos are really ugly. I mean, I guess to start, which one of these do you like
So
the most?
I like the one all the way to the right, the blue jersey with the white pants, white helmet, blue socks,
Yeah,
and I like the all white. And
you do
then
like the all white.
I do like the all white. I wish that the NFL didn't have the rules where you couldn't just have all white everything because that's why it doesn't have a white helmet, and that's why the all blues don't have the blue helmet. That would be way
But
better.
how about the Bengals all white? Maybe it's because they have like a certain amount of black. No, they were all
I,
whites with the white helmet.
that's what everybody was saying. It's that the NFL rules wouldn't allow, which is like, why would you make a rule like to make it look worse, like your product? I don't understand that, but
Yeah,
that's what they were saying. To me, it's like if you had all white pants, socks, jersey, and helmet, that would be really clean. And then if you
would
did
be.
the all blue everything, that would be really clean. I I watched your video earlier today about how you never really loved the orange, and I'm actually right there with you. Everybody loves the orange, or most people like the orange. I've never been an orange person. I don't have hardly anything orange that's not Bronco
Yeah,
related.
same,
Um,
same. I don't
so
even
it's
have that
just
many
not.
orange Bronco stuff usually, to be honest with you.
Yeah, yeah. It's always has orange in it, but it's
Yeah.
not. It's not like predominantly orange. But so to me, I like the white jersey with the blue pants and the blue helmet. Like that looks cool. I know some people have said, oh, it's kind of like the Bears because the navy's even deeper, but I think the Bears look awesome. So like I'm not gonna like be like, oh, don't look good
Yeah,
because other
yeah.
teams look good.
Yeah, it's crazy. Oh, I mean, I'll preface by saying the throwback uniforms are absolutely 10 out of 10. I
Yeah.
think immediately they're the coolest jerseys in the NFL. I think that the color palette that we have now, like with these ones, like the navy and the orange, I get why they stuck with it, even though I
Yeah.
felt like they could have still kept the modern, but went back to like the older colors because it's just nobody has that color combo, and so that would eliminate a lot of like, well, it looks like the Bengals or it looks like the Bears. But I get that. But I think that like the tricolor sleeve, as much as like I'm kind of up and down about it, I think the fact that it's different was something that they had to do. But for me personally, the ones that Mims is wearing here, the white with the blue, is
Yes.
undoubtedly, in my opinion, the best one.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it looks
I
awesome.
think
I
because I love how like the navy pants makes the white pop, and then it looks good with the navy helmet, and then that subtle bit of orange, like it looks good in that sense, right? So I love
Yep.
the away and I guess that's the full time away jersey, like with the blue pants. But
Oh,
you're weird.
okay.
You're right because like the NFL rules are weird. Like I know we have what is this like seven combos, six combos, five different combinations. I guess it's a lot. No more. It's nine combinations of jersey. But like,
Mhm.
how do you like? I know you can get an alternate. I think twice, and then the throwbacks twice. And then do you only get like a limit on which combination do you want to use, or could you just like do it, you know, like for example, if the Broncos on the road one day wanted to just go all white, could they just do it? Or does it have to get it? I don't know how that works. That's what I'm curious about.
It seems to me like they schedule it out because I remember before the season even starts, they send out one of those graphics where it shows each uniform for each game. Like they're already planned.
No,
So,
yeah. Yeah. And I always thought maybe that was just specifically for like when you're gonna do what's considered your alternate or your color rush, right? Or like your throwback. But
mm,
like if they have all of these and none of them are really the only one that's considered the alternate is the all blue one that Javante's wearing.
hmm
It's like if they wanted to wear the white jersey with the orange pants on
hmm
a random day, like, do they have to announce that up front? Or I'm sure it probably is like a jersey schedule, but I just get curious, like if there's limitations to how many combinations that you can have.
yeah, I don't know about the how many combos you can have. They probably have to announce it so the other team doesn't do if they have a similar thing that they don't do like something similar. Maybe
Yeah,
I don't know,
like
but
matchup related. Yeah, that would make sense.
yeah, but I like the fact that they made them so you can mix and match. I think that's pretty cool. Like even the Alex Singleton in the left with the orange jersey and the blue pants and the blue helmet looks pretty sweet.
Yeah,
So
those are cool.
um you know, at first the thing I didn't like about him the most was like the shoulder, like some people thought it was like a lightning bolt or that like jagged, graphic thing on the side,
Yeah, on the
uh,
shoulder here. Yep.
on the shoulder. And then yeah, right there. But then the more I like looked at it and then like, if you just take it, by itself, I think you go, that's kind of interesting. I don't know what that is. But I think when you can imagine people playing and bouncing off of it and that kind of stuff, I think it looks actually pretty cool. And I actually like the arrows. People are like, what is all the dots or what is all the arrows? I think that's a kind of a cool like Colorado elevation. If you ever gone skiing, looked like on a ski map or a hiking trail map and seen like elevation changes and stuff. I think
Yep.
that's kind of a cool like thing that they did with those. Also like the little um cross on the I think it's on the back there where it has like the elevation or it has like it's more of like an outdoor gear type of design that would
Oh,
normally
you
be
talk
put
about
on.
on the back collar?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I thought
Yeah.
that would
Looks
be
clean.
pretty cool. I mean, I just wish they would have for me, simple and cleaner is always going to be better than like busy. But I think for the most part, they're pretty good, and
Yeah.
I think they'll grow on people. I honestly do. But
No,
again,
yeah, I think
when you
so.
have the
That
throwbacks look so good, it's hard to just be like, oh man.
I
See,
know.
to me,
I wanted to find those.
if I was picking, I would have the you know Sertan throwback that they released be like your predominant, and then you have a white and like an all white version of that, and then you have like a navy version of that for your alternates. But
Yeah.
in the throwbacks,
Yeah, and I feel like I get why they didn't do it. I mean, because it's one of those where like they from a business standpoint, they obviously want to have a new, they want to have more sales,
Mhm.
they want to have more options, but they want to have like a new era, but still be able to like take advantage of both. So I
Right.
never really thought, but like, yeah, these are, I mean, the socks really bring it all together. But
I like the
yeah,
socks a
we
lot.
don't even have to, yeah, go too deep into this. These are just super clean. I love those jerseys. I am a fan. I agree with you. Like at first, I thought the triangle thing was weird, and like on the jersey, it's so subtle, so it's not like it's that big a deal. But what I
Hmm.
do like about it is I feel like there's going to be a lot of apparel that you can buy that like has those randomly, and I think on apparel it actually look really nice, and
It does.
it's unique. So yeah, I dig it. I think it's definitely going to grow on people. I think that ultimately um it's when you really sit back because we talked about it a little bit before we ultimately started recording, but like when you take a step back sometimes you need to because like that emotional response is like you can freak out about. And I think
Yep.
these are only going to continue to grow. But when you really think about it, if we went really simple with our color palette, we would look even more like the Bears, or some people had talked about the Bengals, because so you have to do something that differentiates it unless you're going to get a whole new color
Yeah.
palette. So it's like finding
It's
that balance, right? And I think overall it was solid. I gave it a 7 out of 10. I think you had said it was a B. You'd say overall.
yeah. I gave it a B. But with I say with the chance of it growing on me even more because I honestly think it will. It's like even now from when I first saw them earlier this morning, I was like, I like it better now
Yeah,
already.
yeah,
And like you said, that stripe on the back of the helmet that everybody hates, I actually think that will be one of the things people like the most later on because the helmets have grown because they
yeah.
have to have those like special type of helmets from back, and they're subtle enough that giving it having like a ginormous helmet. Because remember when like Wes Welker first wore like one of those helmets and he
Yeah.
looked like Lord Helmet from like Spaceballs, and you're like,
You look like
what the
you
heck?
look like a bobblehead. Yeah.
Right, exactly. So I think that helps make it look more like aerodynamic and more sleek, even though the helmet is grown.
Yeah.
And they also shrunk down the Bronco horse head slightly too.
Yeah,
I
that's what
guess
I heard, which I guess you can't really notice much, but that is what I read. Yeah, no, like I said, I think it makes, I mean, these things, when the first picture got leaked with these stripes, I was like horrified, but they
yeah,
are very subtle. I can see them being something that just kind of become you're fine with.
yeah,
Um, and I love the satin, like the matte finish helmets are so nice. And then the 5280 on the bumper of the helmet was actually a really good idea. Like I thought that looks nice rather than it being in like a very cheesy area. So I think the
yeah.
5280 there overall looks good. So it's a new era, man, and I think we'll grow to love them more if we start winning, right? I mean, if you have
That's it.
a crappy product, then you're gonna have a bad connotation. I think that's what made the last jerseys so iconic, is because like the first year we switched them, we win the Super Bowl. So immediately, people just subconsciously, I think you love them. But we'll see
Yeah.
how these grow. But I dig some of
Let's
the
go.
combos, and some of the other ones I think, nah, they're not all that. So
Like how Deion Sanders says, you look good, you feel good, you play good. So
play
let's
good,
hope
you
that
pay good. So hopefully that happens. Yeah.
they're gonna, yeah, they're already paid good. But yeah, no, I agree with you. I think, this is clearly the Penner era we're living in now, like with these jerseys, like,
Yeah.
and the Peyton era for what it'll be thought of.
Exactly, which I think is obviously important. And like I said, from a marketing business standpoint, it totally makes sense. So yeah, we'll see how it goes. I think they'll grow. I'm excited to see some of the new apparel, the new hats we've needed. We just need new hats. And even though it's not a new logo, there can be some new kind of iterations that can come off of that. So
Yeah.
it'll definitely be interesting there. So we'll see, man.
And speaking of that, I mean, look at you're wearing a Nuggets hat. Um, I growing up when I grew up, they had like the cityscape like rainbow jerseys, and I remember being like, those are the most horrific jerseys I've ever seen at the time in like the '80s, and now people like love them
Yeah.
because it's throwback. So that always happens where like the old is always remembered fondly, but we were like not good. But like when the Nuggets rebranded, it kind of changed the perception a little bit too. I liked the Carmelo Allen Iverson era where it was like that like light blue
That baby
and
blue,
gold
that's simple.
aesthetic.
Yeah.
I thought that looked good, but it needed to usher in a different era. And if Jokic was wearing those, it would be weird in your mind now,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. No, of course. Of course. The things grow on you. I think, man, you talk about drastic. Like the Nuggets completely went different. Like the Broncos went from like a light blue to a dark blue, but they kept the orange. But these like the Nuggets used to do like it was like a maroon color. And then like
Yeah,
a right, and then like a navy, and then all of a sudden they went yellow and light blue. Yeah, they really switched it up. But just like you said, I think things grow on people. You eventually just start to correlate certain eras with certain uniforms. Like for example, if we draft a young quarterback, a Bo Nix, somebody that people are excited about,
yeah,
you're going to correlate them with these jerseys, right? And then and then moving forward, kind of see
it'll
how
be
it
that.
looks. So
Yep, exactly.
and I absolutely hated the old Broncos uniform. There are a lot of people that did like them. I didn't mind like some iterations, but I was like wanting a change for a long time. But I know in like 10 years we'll have a throwback where maybe we wear them for one of the games, and you're gonna be like, oh, I miss these. So it's
You mean
all
the one that we just went from?
yeah, yep,
Yeah, not the
yeah.
old like throwbacks that we went to now,
No,
but
no, like the
yeah,
ones that are
the
now
one to
considered
strike down the
throwbacks.
side.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, that we
I
that
don't.
we just wore last year.
I was trying to think of like I was probably like 17 when we switched to those, and I was trying to remember like what my thoughts were, and I don't remember having strong opinions. I remember being like, yeah, those are cool, I like them. Some
Yeah,
people were like, oh, it's like Nike, Nikeified and all this stuff, and it's
yeah,
like,
yeah.
okay, yeah. But and then we won the Super Bowl back to back, and you're like, I love them.
I love
You
them.
know?
It was funny because I remember I was pretty young, but I remember I was like, oh, I love the colors because I liked the navy more at the time.
Me too, yeah.
Um, but I hated the logo. I just loved the D. It was so iconic. And
Yeah.
but now I'm so happy that they didn't get a new logo and try anything different because I really do think this logo is timeless. And then the Broncos with the D is obviously always going to be a classic. And you don't need
Mhm.
more logos than that. I think we're good.
That's true.
Like I don't think
That's
I'm good if we never get a new logo.
Yeah, if we
um,
go either the D or the one we currently have, it's fine. Some
yeah,
people are like, "Oh, it looks like a dragon and all this stuff." It's like you're reaching. It's fine.
yeah, yeah. Well, like I said, I think at the time it was just weird, but now it's like I can't imagine any other logo. So I'm happy they didn't touch that.
Yeah, yeah,
But yeah, uniforms have always been something that I've been. A lot of fans are like, I don't really care. I've always been like with everything, with basketball, with hockey, with baseball. I mean, everything. I'm really big on like the different jersey types. I just think I don't know. I've always
I'm
kind
with
of
you.
So
I,
we'll
I'm a
see.
little jealous of like the cities like Pittsburgh, where it's like they coordinated every team in the city with the same color pattern, which are like that's pretty cool.
That is cool.
Um, but then at the same time, it's like it's kind of cool to have like I like the Avalanche being like maroon and blue. I think that's
Oh yeah.
you know
Oh,
I
the
wouldn't
Abs
want
jerseys are so yeah.
I wouldn't
Uh,
want the Broncos to be that. I wouldn't want so you get a mixture, but I think you know all of the jerseys that we have in the city so far are good. Nobody cares about the Rockies, but they're fine.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, nobody cares about them, but I mean, I think some of like the city versions of the Rockies uniforms were cool. The Nuggets jerseys always really bug me because there's some that I really like. Like I love the color scheme. Like I like the dark with the red and the orange like on this hat. But
Yeah,
like the ones they wear during the playoffs, that like more royal blue with the
yeah,
red, not a fan. But there's a lot of other people that love them. So
yeah.
I don't
To me,
know.
they're a little basic. They're a little bit like it's just kind of okay, but if you're winning, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
So
Well, let's end the uniform talk with what do you think is the best? Like this would be like the last thought of this, of
yeah,
all the jersey combination, just the whole uniform of
yeah.
every NFL team. Who do you think, whether you want to admit it or not, like if you hate the team or whatever, who do you think? Oh, and by the way, side note, my camera might cut in and out because
Okay,
it's different than the one I use. So if it does, I'm still here. Um,
okay.
but which overall uniform combo do you think is the best
In
or
the
your favorite?
NFL
Yeah.
or in okay in the NFL, Oh man, probably. I mean, we're talking about the Bears. I mean, I'm a navy blue type of person,
You like the
and
Navy?
the navy with just a little bit of the orange and that deep, deep navy with and just making it simple, I think looks super tough. I think that looks like imposing. I think I'm always like the classic teams are always like the best ones. So,
Yeah.
the Packers look cool. I'm not a yellow person necessarily, but like
Yeah,
it
it's
looks good
classic.
with that.
You just can't imagine them changing, right? I mean, it's
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So, you know, everybody liked the Chargers when they did the powder blue. That looks cool.
I
I'm not
liked
a
them a
Ram-
lot more at first, and now I think it just looks tacky.
It's a subtle thing. It's like if you get just slightly the wrong color, it's like, ooh, no. But if you get the right color, you're like, oh, I love them. So
Yeah.
it, sometimes they try to modernize some like a color and just make it a little, they just change it a little bit, and then it's like it ruins it. You know who I actually think is kind of a cool jersey? And it was nobody cared forever because they were bad, but I think the Lions jersey is kind of dope.
Oh, the Lions jerseys are sweet. They did a great job with that. Yeah, absolutely. And I was worried about the Broncos jerseys, like doing something that's like really trendy and like with the times. And then like so it's cool for like a couple years and it like hardcore falls off. Like I love the powder blues for the Chargers when they first came out. And now I kind of think they just look cheap and weird. I do like
Yeah,
the all navy ones they have though. Those ones are cool.
yeah.
Um,
What about you?
but
Which ones do
but
you like
yeah,
the most?
I definitely like I'd like the classic jerseys. Like for example, I think the 49ers have some of the cleanest outfit like uniforms. They're always going to be
Mm,
classic for me. And as
yeah,
much as I hate to admit it, the Raiders with the black and the silver. I mean, you you talk about timeless. That combination will always be nice. So obviously hate the Raiders, but their jersey, their logo, everything is almost perfect.
if the Raiders changed logos and color scheme, they would lose 75% of their fan base. I
Oh,
honestly think
no doubt about it.
people
No doubt.
only like that team because of the colors
Yeah, yeah. And black and silver, it'll never go out of fashion.
and the pirates.
Every combination is good. I'm really pissed that they like ended up getting that color palette, but I mean it does. It looks clean. And I like the Buccaneers pewter gray as well.
Yeah,
I'm a fan of
I
that dark gray.
I like the Raiders, but I wouldn't want them for us. To be honest with you,
Yeah.
I would want. I like the fact that we're different colors. To me, they look like the bad guy in a movie. They look like Darth Vader. They look like, and some people like that. Some people like embrace like being like the heel or whatever. But like, I wouldn't personally want them, but they do look good, and it's just because it's so clean. I mean, you can't go wrong with black, silver, and white. I mean, it's not going to look bad ever.
Yeah, no doubt about it. No doubt about it at all, man. So all right, well, we'll see, man. I'm excited to welcome the new era. I think it's very much needed. 100%. And
Yeah,
so I'm definitely looking forward to it and hopefully it yields good results. But at the end of the day, I think it'll be one of those things that we're gonna look back on it in a few years and be like, why did I not like it? Or, why this or why that? So
yeah, it'll change.
I'm yeah, no, I'm excited about that. So we shall see. All right, cool. So other news, well, I guess the first one we could talk about. So Broncos had signed Levi Wallace, cornerback, I think former he played for the Bills and the Steelers, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, Steelers
Um,
last year.
yeah, I think overall, he's still fairly young, 28 years old. He's got some starting experience. I look at it like this is pretty much the replacement
Fabian
for
Moreau.
Fabian Moreau. Yep. And then it'd be a good veteran guy to compete, but then also it doesn't mean that Riley Moore can't make that step. And I hope that it means we won't draft a corner in the first round. Um,
Yeah, that's the thing. That's like,
but
oh,
it's a good body.
we did two moves today, and one you're like, oh, good, now we won't have to draft somebody, and the other move, I'm like, oh, that doesn't mean we don't have to still draft
Yeah.
somebody.
Well, I was thinking about that because so it's a perfect segue to Zach Wilson. Broncos obviously traded for Zach Wilson. They gave us sixth and got a seventh in return, I believe. So just a a late round swap. And I'll let you have the first crack at this, man. What do you think? It was kind of out of nowhere. I mean, I would have said
Oh,
I would have expected this move after the draft. Whether or not we drafted a quarterback, I could see that happening afterwards. But the week of the draft, I think was surprising. But like, what are your thoughts overall?
they're just based off of pure value. I don't hate it at all because it's like the guy is very obviously has talent enough to be drafted second overall. You're like literally paying 2.75 mil and you're swapping a six for a seventh. And it's like that's nothing. And so to me, it's like just value wise, taking a chance on a guy like that, yeah, that's a great swing. The timing is interesting because you're like, this better not this better not change anything with like getting a quarterback. I I'm choosing to believe that it was more of like not a smokescreen because I mean I think they did have interest in him, but like just a way of being like, hey everybody, we're not as desperate to get a quarterback as you think, but we are like we still like I still think like it doesn't change anything. Like
No.
if you like bank on getting like Michael Pratt or who I like, but or even like a Spencer Rattler instead of getting Nix, Penix, McCarthy, somewhere there, like someone in the top six. It's like no, just
Yeah.
please don't do that because we've been down
Yeah.
that trail before with bypassing Josh Allen because we were gun shy from Paxton Lynch and we had already signed Case Keenum, so we didn't have, it's just like no, we need. I want Sean to get a guy who hasn't seen ghosts, who hasn't been wrecked by a bad organization. I want someone clean and pure that's ready to go. I don't want. And to me, it's like I personally don't think that this is doing that, so I'm fine with it. But if I'm upset Friday morning, that will I'm not like that. We
Yeah.
need to still do it, you know.
Yeah. I had talked about it in a group chat. And I had said it's a good move with a huge if, with a huge asterisk. And
Right.
that means that we still pursue a quarterback in the first round,
Yeah.
right? Because at that point, now you got three guys that are all fairly young, whether it be like actually young or in terms of starting experience. You're not leaving any stone unturned. You're letting guys, they all have up. You can make the argument, or, it's really a fact that there's still upside and growth potential with all those guys. So having them all compete is good. We got Zach Wilson for nothing. They're paying half their salary. It makes sense. If if we don't get a quarterback right in the first round, then is it a good move? No. Is it a bad move? It's not a bad move, but it would be a really bad move if he was the reason that we didn't get a quarterback in the first round. And I don't think that that's the case at all. It doesn't make sense. I think if it was George Payton making all the moves, then maybe, like if he was making the final decision, I would say, yeah, that's something that I could see that
Right.
dummy doing. But the fact that Sean Payton obviously has a huge voice in the room, if not the biggest voice in the room. I think this is one of those where it's like, I don't even know if it's necessarily a smokescreen because I don't think all other NFL teams are, that gullible to think, oh, okay, so now that you got, Zach Wilson, you're not going to get a quarterback. I just think it's one of those things where the Broncos probably inquired about it a long time ago. The Jets said no. And then now that it's getting closer to the draft, the Jets are kind of realizing, well, we're going to get rid of him for sure. And this is the time to do it because at least we'll get something in this year's draft rather than like outright cutting them or trading them for a future pick. So I think that's really more so what it was. And the Broncos were like, all right, yeah, for that deal, we'll do it. But I don't think it has anything to do with anything more than that. But if it helps create a smokescreen, and that's a good thing. But like I said, I don't think the Raiders are now not going to be interested in jumping the Broncos because like, oh, they signed Zach Wilson, not going to get a quarterback. I just don't think it works that way.
Yeah. Let me ask you. I have three questions based off of this. One, do you think if if we draft a first round quarterback, we keep both Wilson and Stidham, as well as obviously the first round quarterback?
Now I'd say no.
Okay.
I would say we
So
have the opportunity to, right? I mean, we could easily have
right.
all three. None of them are being paid a lot. But I think no, I think ultimately it's a battle between Stidham and Zach Wilson
That's what I would think too.
for the backup.
Also, Stidham was in the same quarterback room with I think he was still with or right when Stidham was leaving is when Bo Nix was entering Auburn, so they know each other. Do you think that they're worried about that dynamic whatsoever of like he once looked up to Jarrett Stidham and now he's in the same room. Is there going to be some weirdness with that? If, like, let's say it's Knicks, for instance.
Well,
Do
you
you
know,
think that?
they actually worked together one year. I think Bo Nix was a redshirt freshman. Um, I don't think I don't think it has anything to do with that at all, personally.
Yeah.
I just think it happens to be like a coincidence. But I don't think that they really look into it personally of like, is it a bad dynamic? Is it a good thing? I say if anything, it's a good thing because it's like you're bringing a culture. You got two guys in the room that are going to be competing that came from the same school at one point.
Mhm.
But I think that the Bo Nix Auburn era is like so far in the rearview mirror that I don't know if there's a correlation. What do you think on that?
To me, it seemed like it would be fine, um, because I think people kind of understand like the pecking order of a guy that's bounced around the league and now is like been backing up to a guy who's being drafted first round. I think that speaks for itself. I didn't know. I didn't know. I thought that, sometimes I work at a television station, and we've had celebrities come in, and people who have been celebrities since I've been an adult, even though if they're huge celebrities, it's like no big deal to me. But like when I was at a certain age and I looked up to people and they come in, like we had Fred Savage come in from the Wonder Years, and I was like,
Mhm.
oh my gosh, that's Fred. You know what I mean?
Like
Like that
freaking
was
out,
way
yeah.
bigger deal. And then we also had Bradley Cooper come in, and I was like, hey, what's up, dude? Like it was no big deal. So I just don't know if that's like, I mean, I'm probably overthinking that, but I'm just like, that's interesting that there's already connection there that goes back.
Mhm.
I agree with you. It's probably not anything, but I agree with you also. I don't think they would probably keep both. Now, if you keep Zach Wilson, if somehow you get Zach Wilson in the building and you go, oh, I like this guy, I think there's like something here, you can save 5 million on Stidham and only pay the 2.75 on Wilson. And now you're actually saving money by doing this.
Mhm.
So, if you keep them all, it's not that much of a cost, but I thought that was like, okay, well, maybe this even like helps you save money and upgrade the talent level um, at the same time. It's just going to be hard to know how much you have in Wilson right away to be.
Yeah, I mean, no doubt. It's kind of like, we talked about Drake May a little bit in the last episode, and you had talked about there's a lot of unknowns. There's a lot of like there's like a low floor but like a high ceiling. So he's got a lot of upside but a lot of risk that comes with him. And and so it's like how would he adapt to a Sean Payton system? It's even more of that with Zach Wilson because what we've seen from him as he's been in the league is he doesn't really process that well. He doesn't make the best decisions. It seems like he's always kind of rattled in a way. And I think that there's so many factors that go into it as well. I mean, he's got crazy talent. But it's like if Sean Payton's willing to, take a flyer on somebody like that, and then you bring in Bo Nix, who's like more polished and more ready to go, then that dynamic works. But like let's say the Broncos ended up getting Drake May, it's like, well, Sean Payton's basically showing that he's good with going for a player that needs a lot of developing still. Um,
Right.
so there could be something there, but yeah, I think it's going to be interesting. I think overall it's a good room, and I think it's one of those moves where if it happened 2 months ago or if it happened now, it really is not that much different because instead of taking the band-aid approach like we have in the past of like trying to get this vet and like resurrecting his career, like if we did it with Tannehill, it wouldn't have been like to that level, but it still would have been more of a band-aid approach, right? Whereas like you think that you got somebody that the league thinks is washed but you think has upside. With
Mhm.
Zach Wilson, it's one of those where, okay, let's say we don't draft a quarterback, and the plan the whole time with Zach Wilson, it's one of those where it's like, okay, he's either going to fall completely on his face, and you're going to get a high pick, and you can start over next year, or he's going to play like way better than people think, start to tap into that potential, and then it's like you've got something there. That's a good thing. But when you have one of those aging vets and you're maximizing them, it's like your ceiling is the playoffs, like a wild card, and your floor is like you're still an average team or you're not good enough to get a top five pick. And that's where the problem lies. That's where you talk about the band-aid fix. Is that. And I think like with somebody like a Sam Darnold, who I was interested in at least them exploring, or Zach Wilson, it's like you're either gonna have that potential to show, okay, this guy can be the long-term fix, or they're just gonna fall flat on their face, and then you can just start over. So that was
Yeah.
kind of my whole logic there.
And then here's the other question. Do you think that the Jets now not having their young quarterback behind Aaron Rodgers puts them in the quarterback market?
100%. I was thinking about that when I was driving home today. I think as a dark horse. Now, does that mean first round? I would say no, because I think that they are so all in on the Aaron Rodgers era, whether it's this year or for maybe 2 years, that they need to do everything around him to protect him. And like, think about what kind of feathers that'll ruffle with somebody like with the
Totally.
ego of Rodgers, right? I mean, they
They
drafted
can't.
Love.
They can't.
Yeah, they drafted Love, but I think it puts them in the market maybe for a late rookie quarterback, or obviously I think that they can make a trade for somebody else's backup after the draft if like a certain team does end up getting a rookie quarterback, and then maybe I can't really think of an example right now, but I'm sure that there's a few out there where it's like, oh, now this guy's dispensable, you go and sign him. But all of the signs point to no. I don't think it's ultimately going to happen, but it definitely would not surprise me.
Yeah.
Because you're right. That is one of those things. What do you think on that?
I pretty much exactly agree. I think there's no way that they can be in the first round for like they. I mean, Aaron Rodgers is a Jet because the Packers never like got him people to help him. And now if he went to the Jets and then they did that too in the first round, that would be crazy. They can't do that.
Yeah.
Um, they're all in on the Rodgers or bust. But who do they have behind him? Nobody now. So I mean,
I
it's
mean,
only
I think
natural.
Tannehill might make sense. That'd be kind of like two veteran rooms, but yeah, like I said, I think they know that. Listen, if Aaron Rodgers doesn't play well, if they don't have success in the Aaron Rodgers era, everybody's gone. And and nobody in the history of the planet will ruin your rookie quarterback, not just like the Jets organization, but like Nathaniel Hackett as the OC. So I think that they think if this doesn't work out, they'll just
Yeah.
bring in a whole new coaching staff and let that staff choose like they should. So we'll see.
Yeah, there's no way Hackett's surviving if Aaron Rodgers doesn't work. There's no way.
Yeah. No.
And but it is interesting that there's two little things. One, we got rid of a Wilson to get a Wilson. So everybody's like, oh, just have him wear number 3 and then we can just keep our jerseys,
Yeah.
which I thought was pretty funny. And then two, it almost seems like Sean Payton's like, I will prove that Nathaniel Hackett is not great because I will take what you did with Russ and elevate it and still have it not be good enough. And then I will take what you did with Zach Wilson and then elevate it. You know what I mean? It's almost like, wow, it's just interesting how everything
It
falls
is.
like that.
No, it definitely is. And it's I saw another meme in a group chat of mine. It has a picture of Zach Wilson in a Broncos uniform, and it says, when Sean Payton needs to blame somebody with the name Wilson, and it has him on there.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, there's that too. It would be cool if you wore number 3, right? Because you wouldn't have to get rid of your jerseys. But I think Will Lutz actually has that number, so that was debunked. That
Right.
won't be happening. He changed it.
Well, he was number 2 though, right? So he's obviously not getting that number. So he
Yeah,
probably will go back to number 1 if that's what he
yeah,
plays BYU. So I mean,
yep.
that would be cool. So for him,
Yeah, and right now 1 is taken, but Tremont Smith may or may not change it or make the team. And then he also, I guess he wore 11 in high school. So uniforms,
oh,
numbers, things that I always care about. So that could be
okay,
that could be, but yeah, that'll be one of those fluid things. But yeah, it was funny that you mentioned that about Hackett, because I think I was kind of thinking the same thing too. Like he just wants to go out there, and he's like, I put all my eggs in the basket of like basically shitting all over Nathaniel Hackett, so he's kind of doubling down on
yeah,
this
it's like
one.
he's like, I proved it once and I'll prove it twice, almost is what it feels like. But I mean, it's just coincidental, but that is funny because he
Yeah,
took so much heat for saying kind of the truth. He just
totally.
shouldn't have said it. But
Yeah,
it's like, how
totally.
dare you say that? But yeah, you're right. But how dare you
Yeah,
say
exactly. It was like the code, but it was funny.
right?
So this what I'm going to share here. This is actually what I thought was interesting, but
Yeah,
it's
proved
also a
it.
proof that, like, stats don't always mean everything. But like
Mm,
if you look at Breeze's first 2 years versus Zach Wilson's first 2 years, and obviously different eras, the quarterback
the biggest
situation
thing,
was
yeah.
different, but like crazy, man. Like really not different. They both had a bad record. Their completion percentage was bad. Zach Wilson had
Yeah.
more pass yards. I mean, everything is almost identical. Um, so
But you could take any quarterback that struggled for their first 2 years of their career and then put it next to it and probably like, hey, look, it's pretty similar to Drew Brees. But it's just it is interesting. Brees seemed to figure it out right before he left San Diego.
mhm.
Um, he had a really good year right before, but then he got hurt. He had the shoulder injury, and that's when they were like, "Well, we were already planning on taking a quarterback, and now you have the injury, so we're going to let you walk." And it just happened to be like the perfect time for Peyton to take a chance on him. And
Yeah,
that's another thing. People think, oh, he's it's the same thing like with when Elway got Manning. They're like, oh, well, he's just lucky he got Manning. Well, it's like, yeah, but he still did it. So like he still gets all the credit for getting Manning because he's the one that recruited him. And so all the dominoes that fell after that are because of that move that he did. Now, Sean Payton, same thing goes. Like only two teams wanted Drew Brees, and Sean Payton is like the one guy who was like, I'm willing to risk like,
yeah,
you not being okay
yeah.
because I believe in you. And it paid off. And so it's like he gets all the credit, in my opinion. Like Drew Brees was not destined for the Hall of Fame before Sean Payton. And, you know, he that marriage worked so perfectly. So
It did.
yeah,
Yeah,
it
sorry, I
is
gotta move the
interesting.
doggo here. But yeah, it
Uh,
did. I mean, it did. And I remember vividly. I'm pretty sure Drew Brees got hurt versus the Broncos. I think it was John Lynch that ended up hitting him in the end zone.
I
But
think that's
and he was gonna go to Miami, and then they didn't pass him on the physical. So
right.
yeah, there was luck there, but like, sometimes those match made in heavens type of things work. Now, if you had to
Yep.
ask me, do I think it will? I mean, no, because I think that, well, first of all, just obviously the odds are against you, but Drew Brees was always known to be a very cerebral quarterback. He just needed
Yeah.
somebody to kind of tap into that. Zach Wilson's not necessarily known as that,
Right.
for a lot of different reasons. So there'll have to be some sort of drastic. But I mean, the guy's got stupid talent. He really does. Like
Yeah.
I was watching him on one of the Monday night games. It was an abysmal game, but he had a throw where I was like, damn. Like now I can understand why like there was some hype or like there's still that optimism. It's kind of like Jerry Judy when he was with here, right? It's like you see one of those plays and you're like, holy hell.
Mhm.
Um, so you never know. And sometimes it changes scenery and just sitting back and learning from an actual offensive minded coach rather than a quarterback that really doesn't care about anybody else but himself is very important. So
Yeah, that Zach Wilson pro day. I mean, Chris Sims even talked about that. It was like one of the most impressive ones I've ever seen, where you're just like, this guy is unreal.
totally.
Um, but that just teaches you not to go off pro days because it's when nobody. And they also made a point. I was listening that the year Zach Wilson came out and had the success was the COVID year when like we didn't have people in the stands and it was quiet. It couldn't have been easier to play quarterback under any sort of circumstances. So I think that was maybe a factor too. Who knows? Um, but yeah, I don't mind the swing as long as it doesn't change our plan. I
Exactly. Because
mean,
if it does, it's an absolute dog shit, miserable move. Like
yes,
I can't explain it. If this move is altering now, it see, but there's so many layers, right? And this is why this is all so fascinating. And we'll wrap this up and get to the draft here soon. But I
yeah,
think there's so many layers to it because it could have been one of those situations where all week long or all month long, however long, the Broncos have been trying and looking at every single option to try to move up to target somebody very specifically. Right? Let's say they like Knicks, but they're like, but let's just say for this argument that Sean Payton loves Drake May, right? And so he knows I got to get at least the three to guarantee that we get him. And they've
mm-hmm.
explored every single option. They realize it's
It's
just
not gonna.
not feasible. And then so they end up getting Zach Wilson, just like, okay, we're gonna roll with and we'll see. Then fine, but like you're never gonna know that, right? So, but if that's the case, then you look at it and say, all right, well, I mean, what's the difference doing it now versus doing it 3 months ago? But yeah, ultimately, I think this is just one of those things where it was probably more initiated on the Jets side just because the draft is this week and they wanted to at least get something that they can use immediately, like a little bit of a higher pick, rather
Right.
than have it drag along into the season. And then there's the other part too, where first of all, after the draft, you might not be able to trade them. Like maybe the Broncos like, no, screw you, and then you're stuck with them, and then you have to pay the full salary anyway. So a little bit of a salary dump. So I think it makes more sense from the Jets' perspective than it really does the Broncos side.
Yeah, the Broncos are taking no risk, really, hardly anything. I mean,
Yeah.
they're paying a nickel on the dollar,
Mhm.
and you know, I think you're right. The Jets just were like, let's just cut ties. Let's just have a clean mindset going in, and yeah, that's what it felt like. That's what it felt like from the Jets. It was like we're willing to pay half of an already small contract and take hardly anything as far as draft compensation. So yeah, they totally were just like, we just want to get rid of him.
Yeah.
And Sean Payton's, you know, he goes, this guy's really talented, and if he was in a different situation, things could have been different. I want to see. So
Yeah.
I don't mind.
Absolutely.
I don't know.
Absolutely. You talk about football rehab. I mean, absolutely. Right. And who knows, man? Maybe it's those situations. Let's say you end up drafting a quarterback in the first round, and then he falls on his face, and you just realize, shit, man, maybe he's not that good. But then all of a sudden, Zach Wilson is just an additional option of somebody that maybe can be good. And just like you said, I think the risk is so low. Why the hell not? At least you're you know, going after all the options that you can. So
And I'll
yeah,
tell
I
you
don't hate
what.
it.
Now, if if we draft a first round quarterback, whoever it is, and they get dinged up, I'm much more interested in watching Zach Wilson trot out there than Jarrett Stidham personally. And you just never know. I mean, I'm not saying I don't at this point expect Zach Wilson to become a Pro Bowler quarterback or anything like that, but he's clearly has tools, and I think if you just put him around the right thing, the right system, I mean, he could be one of the best backups in the league. And I've seen other situations where they've come in maybe for a few games, played really well, but they're still not going to be the long term starter. And now you trade him for a third rounder, second rounder, who
Mhm.
if they have, you just don't know.
Yep.
It's such a low risk, like high reward
High reward move.
possibility.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
I fully agree. And then another hot take before we get into this is my personal belief, and you might agree with it or have a different, but I feel like I'm willing to say there's a 95% chance that Cortland Sutton is traded during the draft.
Really?
Yeah, I
Because
do.
they didn't put him in any of the videos, or why do you think that?
I think so. At first I thought, yeah, that's a big red flag, but then maybe they filmed it like during the off-season program, and I know he wasn't there because he was hurt, so maybe that's the reason. But there's always I just feel like he doesn't want to be here. I don't know if the Broncos really want him. If he doesn't want to be here, they're definitely not going to pay him more. They tried to get rid of him last year. Been kind of going on for a while. I don't know, man. It's just a feeling that I have, and I could totally be wrong, and I would be fine with it either way. But I really feel like he might get dealt during the draft.
I
And
could
it
see it.
it makes sense
Go
for a
ahead.
lot of teams too, right? Like I think that during the draft makes sense because maybe there's a team in the in the first round that was really interested in like I don't know, let's say a team's conflicted, like they love a wide receiver prospect and they love a pass rusher, right? And then they have
Mhm.
the option of maybe being able to trade for so and it'll be like a fifth or a sixth round pick, but maybe they like the flexibility of like, okay, now this helps with this draft decision, or if they end up missing out on a guy that they were planning on getting, this is a good plan B. So that's
Mhm.
why I think that there's actually a pretty high chance that happens. Um, but yeah, just the
I
gut
could,
feeling.
so I could see it if later in the draft there's a somebody that they like and somebody's offered already, and let's say Luke McCaffrey or some a later wide receiver, and he's there, and you can get that pick for Sutton. I could see that. I just don't see them wanting to like cut ties and then with the unknown of what you're getting for it. Just because you with Jerry Judy being gone, and if you bring in a rookie quarterback, that having that room be completely in flux like that, and all you have is Marvin Mims at the time and Patrick who hasn't played in 2 years. That's
Well, and you have,
bad.
I mean, you have homie we just signed. Or I was a
Oh,
big
Reynolds, yeah, but again, he
yeah.
hasn't he
Yeah.
hasn't learned the system yet either. So,
No, 100%. I mean, and there's still Michael Thomas out there. I mean, there's a lot, but I agree with you on the Broncos from the Broncos front, but like from a culture standpoint of what you're trying to build, you're gonna want guys that are here, right? And I just felt like ever since the end of the season when we got rid of Russ, something was weird with Sutton. He was putting just weird things on his Instagram, and
mhm.
I think his value right now is absolutely the highest it'll ever be, whether that's very high or not. Um, and I
Interesting.
mean, who knows? It's more developmental guys. Like when you look at it from the basis of a rebuild and what you want a team to do, that would be the good thing to do. Get rid of a vet, even if it's for late round draft compensation, and then bring in more guys to develop and like earn and take that role. But I mean, you make a good point. But like, and then on the flip side, though, right? Like, let's say New England takes a quarterback at 3, and now
Hmm.
New England's saying, "Oh, a guy like Sutton would be a really nice, solid veteran weapon to have for our
Hmm.
rookie."
Hmm.
There's
Yeah,
there's that piece too. So we'll see,
yeah.
we'll see. But I think it's something to certainly keep an eye out
It
on.
seemed like when they asked about it in that press conference, and they were like, "We've been in contact. It's all good. It's voluntary. Whatever." I mean, obviously, of course, they want everybody to be here, and I do think that's more important than they are letting on. But I just think this whole contract thing isn't about more money because no one ever has reported he wants a raise. It
Mhm.
just seems to me that he just wants more guaranteed because there's so little guaranteed this year, which it's like, of course you do. Everybody would want that. But I haven't heard that he wanted a raise. Now, if he was asking for a raise, I would probably be on the same thing as you, where it's like there's no way they're going to give him more. They've already gave him a lot. And he
Yeah.
hasn't like overperformed that contract. But if he's just going, hey, can you guarantee me more just so like, we can be good just in case something happens? If you're already going to pay it anyway, it seems like that was more of like maybe what it was about instead of like, a raise. So,
Yeah, and listen, I'm all about. I mean, I'm all about players getting paid out. And like on the flip side, we gave him a contract earlier than we needed to give it to him. He ends up tearing his ACL. Like it worked out good for him to be able to, still have that part. And then obviously we could have cut him like before March 18th and saved 2 million. So we didn't. So like we did a lot of things that were right by him. And I think if we ultimately do keep him, we probably will give him a little bit more of like earning potential, but I think it'll probably be um in the form of like incentives.
right.
Personally, yeah, that's something
Yeah.
that makes sense.
I could see that they're just like, hey, how about we'll just do like if you're on the roster a certain day, we'll guarantee you 5 million more just to have
Yeah,
it guaranteed. And
yep.
then everybody's happy. Yeah, it will be interesting. I don't think I would be on the opposite. I think that there's like a 90% chance they don't trade him at this point because they've had a lot of opportunities to. But again, like you said, if a certain team goes, oh, you know what, who would be perfect, and if we can get him for whatever, and they call, then yeah, it could happen. Or if somebody falls that they really like and they don't have a pick for it, and that team is interested, then maybe they could do it as well. I think
Yeah.
so.
Yep. All right. Well, interesting stuff, man. And I'm excited. Draft's just like what, 4 days away now, 3 days away. So super pumped.
Yeah,
Super pumped about it.
I know. Super.
All right, man. Well, let's get into the draft. We'll do it like last time, but we'll flip the order. We'll stop at pick 12. Some of
Okay.
them I don't think we'll have to necessarily go into as much if it's the same as last time.
Yeah, exactly.
And then, now with some of the new news that we have and potential, then, maybe it'll make a change here. So let's go ahead, hit it with come on, get off my screen. All right. Let's do it. All right. So last time
Okay.
I think I started, right? So now you're gonna give it a
Yep.
start.
Yep. Your odds. I was
Uh,
evens. Now
well,
I'll
this
be
is
odds.
this is the hardest. This is the hardest.
Yeah. The Chicago Bears trade the number one pick to the Denver Broncos for Zach Wilson.
Yeah, right.
No.
That'd be nice.
Um. Yeah. No. Yeah. Caleb Williams going number one. That's without saying.
Yeah, and I think what's interesting about this is this actually changed a lot since we last did the mock because there's a lot of reports coming out that I actually think is not smoke. I think it's real with Jaden Daniels and the Commanders. Did you hear about that?
That he, is it the one that he's like might not go there? Is that what you're?
Yeah,
Is
like
that,
even Schefter talked about it. There's kind of some rift happening between Washington and Jaden Daniels, and there's some people out there that think Jaden Daniels doesn't want to be there. And he came out on a podcast and talked about like, oh, I don't think my interview with Washington did that good. I kind of dropped the ball. And then there was another report that said he was upset because they had like all of the visits happen together and it kind of like intimidated him. I don't
Mhm.
know, man. Like when you see reports from multiple like very credible sources and they're all kind of saying different things that lead to the ultimate same. I personally don't think that Jaden Daniels is going to ultimately end up with Washington. Um, just a hunch. I have a
Interesting.
lot of hunches today.
Interesting.
I'm feeling kind of in a hunchy mood. But I'll say that when I look at it, like I don't know how Cliff Kingsbury feels about Drake May. The odds of JJ McCarthy going number 2, have you seen those? Have like skyrocketed like crazy,
Yeah.
which could be
I mean, they
smoke
have
too.
they have been for a while. Yeah.
Yeah,
JJ could go anywhere from 2 to 11, it seems like, but two to
yeah,
four is like the main range.
yeah.
I
But
think he could live. Go ahead.
go ahead. No, are you saying?
No, I'll say it if depending on who you pick.
I think they're gonna go with JJ McCarthy, man.
Okay, I was gonna
I
go
mean,
JJ3. I was gonna go JJ3
yeah.
because
Um,
I honestly think, again, like we talked about it, I'm not, the Drake May like inconsistency stuff I think is real too. I think that scared a lot of people. I mean, Kurt Warner's talked about it. Chris Sims was the first one to really plant the flag and be like, this guy is QB6, for me.
mhm,
And then when people went and watched, it seemed like everybody who loved Drake May was just like, I know he's inconsistent, but look at all
mhm,
this other stuff. But it's like, yeah, you can't just bypass that though. Like if you're and I heard in another podcast where they talked about this, and it's like that Moneyball quote is like, if he's a good hitter, why doesn't he hit good? If he's a good quarterback, why doesn't he throw it well?
mhm.
So it seems kind of similar, but um, yeah, I could see it. I could see it.
I mean, it happens every year. Like we were talking about it with Caleb Williams. Like reporters will just glance over things, and you're like, why aren't you digging into this more? It was like that with Zach Wilson when he got drafted number 2 overall with the Jets. I was literally thinking to myself, why? Like based off of what? Like he's got a
Yeah.
strong arm. Um, and I mean that one ended up being right. And obviously, there's times where it's like, it's a crapshoot, right? But yeah, I mean, you make a good point, right? Where there's a lot of people like, yeah, but I mean, there was a little bit of Drake May slander, and then that kind of quieted down. I always look at like what's quiet during draft week, and that's one of them. But yeah, I think JJ is gonna. I have him well, just for the sake of this. I think he's a chance that he goes 2, and I'll have him at 2. So if this happens, where do you think New England goes at 3?
Man, that would throw a huge, huge wrench in the whole thing because it's such a pivot if you're New England, who's expecting to probably draft Drake May because Jade Daniels isn't there. And I could see them going JJ instead of Drake May because it's like somewhat similar, but Jaden's like a totally different animal. So
Mm-hmm.
that is totally. I would say that if I was gonna guess, I think they would pivot and they would probably take Jaden Daniels over over May in that situation. I know that they probably will still pick May, and they're I think this happens all the time in the actual draft. Is you're so sure that somebody's not going to be there that you kind of just put them out of your
Yep.
mind, and then when suddenly somehow they fell to you, you're almost nervous to take them because you're like, I'm already sold myself so much on the guy that I thought was going to be there that I was going to take
Yeah.
that you just get scared and you go, well, and then you go, why is other people not taking him? I don't know. And then they just take the person that you were originally thinking you were going to take, and then they just slide and slide and slide. But yeah,
Well,
I
yeah, I
could
mean
see.
the Broncos did that with Chubb. I mean, they didn't even meet with him. They thought they had no chance of getting him, and then they kind of just like, oh, I guess we'll get him, which is
Right.
is
It would have
bad in
been
so many ways. But
right. Yeah, exactly. That's why you have to do your due diligence,
yeah,
even though this person doesn't seem like
And
you'll get him.
I'm sure New England did because Jaden Daniels at 3 was not like a big stretch.
Yeah, for a long time, people thought that was what the original order was going to be. Was May was 2 and Daniels was 3. So I'm
Yeah.
sure that they probably did that.
So
I would
you want
probably
to roll with
go. I would
good?
go with Daniels. Yeah, I think that like if it was Bill Belichick, I think it would maybe not be Daniels,
Yeah,
but you
I agree.
put uh what's his name? Who's the Mayo
Hmm.
as the coach, and the culture is changing, and this is a new era. I could see it for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I agree. Oops, that's not what I wanted to do. Okay, how do I go back? That was like a complete mishit. But I mean, hey, it could be. It could be him.
You can, that's right.
I don't even know how to redo it on here.
Maybe, maybe just restart it real quick.
Yeah.
You're not far down the road. Okay, so that puts us at 4 for Arizona, and Drake May
Yeah.
forward.
Yeah, I think if this happens, there could be a lot of chaos, but it could be like maybe a lot of teams kind of knew about it, right? And then so I mean, you never know. That could throw a wrench in a lot of people's plans, but ultimately, I think a lot of things get decided here or like this week, and teams don't really get taken by surprise. I think at least in the top 5 or 10 picks for the most part. Um,
Usually, yeah,
yeah, usually not. So we had Caleb Williams, we had Drake May. You ended up rolling. Sorry, JJ
no,
McCarthy. You ended up rolling with Jaden Daniels.
yep.
And then I think obviously a huge trade spot. We talked about that. This doesn't really change too much. Um, but ultimately, um, another hunch that I'm having is that they could go Malik Neighbors, but I think it's going to be Marvin Harrison Jr.
Yeah, I think that's the safe one.
Yeah.
I could see either way, but yeah, that's probably it. Now, do you think Minnesota in this case trades up for Drake May because now they're worried about the Giants and the Broncos maybe wanting Drake May?
Oh, 100%. I think they do that at 4 or 3, even depending. I mean,
Yeah,
absolutely, absolutely. I think that, and they have the most ammo to do it. So I think that they would be very aggressive moving
I
up
personally
with
think
Arizona.
Minnesota likes JJ the most just because I know that there was some smoke about, oh, actually they could go to 3 and get May. Maybe May's their person. But all of these leaks about Sean Payton being desperate for JJ McCarthy are all coming from Minnesota. Like, why would Minnesota be saying all this stuff? It's like the radio guy out of Minnesota. And it's like, to me, that just seems so obvious that you're like, clearly you want JJ and you're trying to like make your fan base like in a frenzy of like, it's okay to trade up because we have to because Sean Payton wants him.
Yeah.
To me, that's what it is.
Yep.
There's no way Sean Payton is like, hey, the team also needs a quarterback. Let me tell you what I'm thinking. It just
Yeah.
doesn't make it. So,
It's a good way of looking through the tea leaves. It makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
but
Agreed.
I can see them liking Drake May. Again, I personally feel like he's a little bit of a developmental guy, as like he needs a little time, but so did JJ. So it makes sense to me. I think that Minnesota would probably want to jump up at 4 if this was the case the way it fell.
Yeah.
Um, and Arizona seems like they're willing to trade, but maybe they would do that here at 5 too. I don't know. But we're not doing trades, so I'm gonna go like I would say okay. So Chargers again. I could see the Chargers wanting to move back to 11, and
Mhm.
again I said this in the last one and get like somebody like Latham. I think probably go. I think you picked Fuaga the last time. I'll go that same route because I think he's the higher prospect, but
Mhm.
I would not be shocked if the Chargers traded back to get Latham. I think that's who they kind of might actually want, and they can easily justify that if they move back.
So you were saying Fuaga?
Yeah, I'll go Fuaga.
I think I had Joe Alt going to them, but Fuaga
Oh,
would
did
make
you?
sense. Yeah.
Okay,
But I
I'll
mean,
go
either way.
Fuaga.
Yeah,
I'll go
either
Fuaga.
way. Either way, I think we're on the same boat. Sorry, I gotta take the little pup out because he's being very annoying. So while I do that, I will look at this pick. The Giants, still think the Giants are probably the most interesting and one of the bigger wild cards.
Yeah.
Not from a sense of like, oh, they can trade, but but the sense of like, I don't really know what the hell they're gonna do. And I feel like there's almost no move that they could make that you couldn't justify them making, right?
Yeah.
But I do think that they realize that it's a pretty bad roster. I think they're still willing to give Daniel Jones another year. I think they want to get him a weapons. I think we did it last time. I feel like Malik Neighbors there makes so much sense. So I'm gonna go with that.
And also, Cecil Lammy was talking about the Giants really doing a ton of work on Bo Nix. They just don't want to trade. They don't want to pick him obviously at 6, but they are definitely a candidate to pick him back end, trading back into the first round to get him or the top of the second. So that's interesting to me.
And it makes
You
sense.
know,
It makes sense. But
it
then
does make
you also think like, I mean, and I could see them wanting, trading back because that could be a really premium pick, whether it be for a quarterback or not. And they could still trade back a little bit and still take Bo Nix. There's a lot of layers there, and it like I said, I think a lot of things would make sense, but ultimately, I think they do try to trade back. But if they stayed at 6, I think adding a weapon like Malik Neighbors, who's arguably the best receiver in this draft, would be a really good move for him.
it would. And if you can, if they're hoping that Nix falls or somebody falls to them in the second, and you got Neighbors and your future quarterback, that would be the ideal draft. So,
Yep,
um,
absolutely.
all right. So number 7, Titans on the clock, and we didn't pick all at 5, so I'll pick all for the Titans. I think that
I like it. I like
you
it a
could
lot.
definitely go with a quarterback or a wide receiver there as well. But I think if Alt did slide, because they're probably thinking he won't, I could see them being like, no, we can't pass this.
Yeah, yeah. I think Joel makes a lot of sense. Get protection for Will Levis. I think I took a tackle last time too. So
I think
um
that's Waga.
yeah, yeah, that totally makes sense. All right, Falcons. Falcons are an interesting team.
Yeah,
Um, because like I said, there's a lot of routes they could continue to go on the playmaker route and get some weapons for Kirk Cousins. They could get him some protection. They can get some defense. I think last time we went with edge. I just think edge makes way too much sense for them
it
personally.
does. It does.
They need to beef up that defense. They've got Raheem Morris, defensive minded coach. I could see that if they love a corner, I could see them taking a corner and then having a really good cornerback tandem. But I think
Mm-hmm.
teams are starting to realize that elite corners are not nearly as important as elite pass rushers.
Mm-hmm.
I think last time I think you took Dallas Turner.
I did.
And so, yeah, I think he's probably the best edge. Him or Jared Verse, I'm a big fan of. So I'll go Dallas Turner there at 8. I think it makes sense.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Um, I know people be like, oh, we could get a Dunze, but it just seems like, again, they've already invested in that. And what good is being able to have a good offense if you can't stop anybody? So, all right. So Bears at 9. I This is where I am on the fence.
It's a tough one. It's a tough one. We talked about it a lot last time.
Yeah, I think I would probably. I know that they have really good receiving positions now that they've traded for some pieces, but they're older. So I think I'm going to go Dunze here. I think
That
if you
would be a
could get
good pick. That
Caleb
would be.
Williams with a Dunze in the same draft, like Chicago fans have to be going crazy for that.
Yeah, it's definitely an exciting pick, and you can make the argument that it's obviously a very good pick because Odunze is a stud. I think the
Yeah.
smartest pick, I think the smartest pick would probably be an O lineman, but
Right.
I love it. I love it. I think Odunze would be fascinating there.
Yeah.
All right, so I get the pleasure of the Jets. Yay. Yeah, I think
Nobody's
I
ever said
think
that
this
before.
is I think this is all about obviously Aaron Rodgers building around him. A tackle makes way too much sense. And so I'm gonna go. I kind of like
What about
Fashanu. Kind of
What
like Deshaun.
about a Brock Bowers at for the Jets?
That would make it would make a ton of sense, but their O line is so bad. I mean,
I agree.
just like you guys said last time, Aaron Rodgers
Mhm.
got killed because of it. Zach Wilson was getting beat up. Everybody they put behind that line was just getting absolutely dominated. They have a really good running back, so this could obviously help the run game too. And so I just think Brock Bowers would make sense and it would be interesting. But given the needs that they have, I just feel like, yeah, going with, I don't really know the tackle class too well. I'll go with Fashanu, but
And I
um,
wonder if Aaron Rodgers has any sort of sway because he's such a important piece to them now. If he went in there and was like, "Hey, I would love Brock Bowers," like just to say, for instance, he like actually like said that to the GM, I could see like
I
because he
always
never
wonder that.
got weapons. He never got first round weapons, and you know, again, I think the smarter move is the line, but I could just see it. I could see a world where that happened.
I could see the Jets trading back up into the upper part of the first round too,
Yeah.
and potentially getting him his weapon. I mean, he does like the thing is they have such good skill position players too, right? I mean, they got Garrett Wilson who's a stud. You know,
Mm-hmm.
they got. I mean, they have Alan Lazard on the other side, and they have a couple like small pieces here and there, but they have Brees Hall. They got a really good defensive roster. And so, and I always wonder if the kind of sway that certain players might have. I mean, I think that they take their opinion, but
Mm-hmm.
ultimately the front office is going to do what they do. So I Brock Bowers would make a lot of sense there too. I just feel like, man, you're doing such a disservice to your
But
quarterback
you
if
could,
he's running for his life.
but because Brock Bowers is a good blocking tight end, you could sell yourself for the idea of he does also help in that way as well. He's like a dual threat.
Yeah, he does. No, he does. And they could even trade back and acquire a little bit more picks to be able to get, a good mix of everything too.
Mm.
But and like I said, I mean, I'd be really intrigued to see Brock Bowers. I think he'd be a hell of a fantasy tight end as well. But also, I mean, Aaron Rodgers he's never really had that good of tight ends, but he's also never really seemed to care about tight ends as much either. But that could be pretty ignorant too. So
That's
so
true.
yeah, I think I'm just gonna go with I think what the
Yeah,
safe and logical pick would be,
yeah,
and that's to get a tackle.
for sure. Okay, so now Vikings at 11, which if the board felt like this, the Vikings would probably be picking this player, but not at 11. They'd probably be picking them 4 or 5.
Mm-hmm.
I think they would probably not want to risk the Giants having a shot at their potential quarterback. So I think they would jump up to 3, 4, or 5.
Yeah.
But if this actually happened this way and Drake May is still on the board and the Vikings don't have a quarterback, I don't think they are passing him. I mean,
No.
like, to
Yeah.
be honest.
I don't. Yeah. If it felt like, I mean, there's so many. Like, yeah, just like you said, I don't think Minnesota State's put at 11. If they do, it's because I think that the quarterback that they wanted is not there, and I think at this point the Broncos would have even jumped them. They could have jumped to 10 or 9 or 8, really, or 7. You can make the argument for any of those. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I think quarterback makes. So I'm gonna assume that it's Drake May.
Drake May, yeah.
Yeah, that would be wild if Drake May fell to 11. And the Broncos are high on him. You never know what the hell can happen there.
That's the thing
Um,
with intel. It's like, how good of intel do these teams have on other teams? Like, how, if you knew they actually don't like this guy, so don't, and how much do you trust that intel? That's the world of the NFL that really fascinates me because it's so like cloak and dagger and like we think we know but we don't 100% know and we don't trust it. I was listening to Bill Belichick talk to Pat McAfee and he was basically saying like anything that comes out the week of the draft is probably not true. It's probably agent driven. But anything that happens 12 hours or before
yeah,
the draft or later is like that's where you get the real intel and you get a lot of intel that time because I think agents are kind of like knowing things at that point, and I think people can just see the tea leaves of like, oh, they're doing this, or oh, they're not interested in talking to this team anymore, and whatever.
yeah, and I think teams like purposely will start to leak stuff at that point to just like as a service to like everybody else. I know that sounds crazy. Like, why would you want to help other teams? But it's also like, hey, don't call us no more. Don't waste your time with us. We're going with this guy. Don't, and
Yeah.
it kind of, with those negotiations and those conversations, things just kind of start to get out. Like, I think by that point, for example, if New England decides they're definitely not going to trade pick 3, then it would just naturally come out that, okay, they're going quarterback. They could probably make an assumption of who they think that is. Whereas if they're like kind of aggressively shopping 3, then people start to know, oh snap, they're not going to go with that. This is open, and then who is the team that's calling you? You just kind of start figuring things out that way, because ultimately time is now limited. So actions
Yeah.
have to follow.
And Washington, if Jaden Daniels spurned Washington, Washington would come out with something the morning of the draft saying, we didn't like Jaden Daniels either.
Yeah, or we
Which is
found out
like,
information about him,
right.
or
Which
we
it's
were
like,
we
sure
were
you did,
always,
but
yeah, or we were always high on JJ, but we played coy. We
right,
kept, yeah,
exactly.
yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
All
All
right.
right.
Well, I just to
It
make
is.
it fun, I mean, I know we took Knicks. Obviously, that's the pick that I would be fine with and ultimately want over any of these guys.
Uh-huh.
But just to make it interesting, I guess, and make it a little bit different, I'll make this pick assuming that we're not going to take a quarterback in the first round, which would be a terrible idea. Um,
Yeah.
and if that's the case, then we should absolutely trade back. But if all of these guys were available, and I'd like to get your opinion on this too. But if all the guys that you see are available,
Mm-hmm.
non-quarterbacks, who would
Mm-hmm.
be your number one choice?
If I had to pick one of these guys and I don't get to pick a quarterback, probably Byron Murphy. Probably I could see I
I
could see
would that
tackle.
that yeah, that would be interesting. That would be interesting.
It's just such a weakness on our team for so long that to get the number one guy who's young and really good, I personally would think that's a better move than like Brock Bowers. I know Bowers is more exciting, but like, man, we got 70 points scored on us last year. You know what I mean? And like, to me, that's the guy that would fix a lot of obvious problems right away.
Mhm.
Um, I could see Quinion Mitchell, but I honestly think they signed Levi Wallace today. I think they really like Riley Moss. I'm expecting Damari Mathis to have a bounce back year because he showed he could do it. So
Yeah,
it's
he
like
showed
there's
he
no
showed a lot of
reason,
potential, man.
right? If he would have came out and just been bad from or struggled from the start, I'd be like, oh yeah, that's probably a bad pick. But he was good. So I think I'll chalk that up to like changing coordinators, changing schemes, that kind of a thing. But I expect him to be better this year too. So I think Mitchell is really, really good. I would not hate having him on my team, but I think we're stronger in that area than we are in the line
Yeah,
or
I,
pass
I would
rusher.
I would be fine with that. It would be one of those moves, but at least you know that it's a really smart move, because anytime you're beefing up your O line or your D line, you know, it's a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
And Payton's a trench guy. Like same with Harbaugh. Like
yeah,
the
yeah,
first thing he did is came in and fixed the offensive line. See, that's the other thing is people were like, "Oh, the Broncos shouldn't take a quarterback because the team's not good, so he'll just get killed and not." It's like, yeah, but we already have a good offensive line. Usually,
yeah,
bad teams have bad offensive lines, and we don't. So I think that's why it could work.
yeah. No, absolutely. I think for me, I can talk myself into a lot of different options, even though it still makes me sick that we wouldn't take a quarterback. But obviously, it's hypothetical. But
Yeah.
I would choose Brock Bowers, and here's why.
Okay.
Because firstly, he is, I just think he's such a ridiculous talent. He's a generational type of talent at the tight end position. I think
Mm-hmm.
tight end is an underrated, like it's a very, very important position, like very underrated in terms of the way that it's valued. And
Mm-hmm.
obviously, Peyton loves the tight end position. But I look at it like, okay, if you're doing that, you're obviously taking the long term approach. We're going to have a lot of money next year.
Mm-hmm.
And depending on how that free agent class shapes up, you can get, I mean, you could, and, well, you can't get tackles, but you could always re-sign Garrett Bowles, right? Um, you could always look at, defensive linemen and pass rushers and outspend other teams if you wanted to get them, or if you wanted to get other wide receivers. There's always going to be, guys available there. So you can spend to improve a lot of these positions in free agency, which
Mhm.
not always the smartest thing to do, but you can. But how often is what you would uh what you would project an elite tight end to be like? How often is that person available? It doesn't happen ever. I mean, teams just never let go of tight ends that are elite, and I think that that's one of those. It's one of those positions where we need to.
Yeah.
We obviously need it, and it's also one of those where, like, let's say Greg Dulcich is miraculously healthy this season. That's a
Mhm.
hell of a combination of two guys,
Yeah.
and
And it,
it sets up the next quarterback, whoever it is, eventually, with some pretty damn good guys to throw the ball to. Man.
yeah, it's like and a different style too. You got like a slasher, like seam splitting guy versus a possession guy who can break tackles.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and then if Cortland Sutton gets traded, this at least allows for you to feel a little bit better about it because you look at the rooms and you have a lot of young talent, a lot of high
Mhm.
upside. So that's why I think ultimately I'll go with Brock. But I, I would say I'm hopeful that it's just a quarterback and we don't have to worry about it. But who knows? On
Yeah,
Friday we could be having an entirely different discussion. So
yeah, it would be weird to be mad about drafting Brock Bowers, but I would be if we
yeah,
did, But I mean, that would after a week or two,
it'd
you'd
at
be
least
like,
be
well,
exciting.
maybe.
It would be one of those things where you're like, I'm excited at least because like you're seeing a skill position player guy and like you're excited to see how he plays.
Mhm.
But ultimately, you're like the smart move would have been an interior defensive lineman or a tackle. Just like if you take an interior defensive lineman and a tackle, at first you're like, ugh, what a letdown. But then you think about it, you're like, it's obviously a smart move. It's never going to be a sexy move, but it's a smart
Mhm.
move. So
That's why I like the Chargers to me on paper. If there was any other coach but Harbaugh, you would be like, oh, they're taking a Dunze or Neighbors here, if they're there because they got rid of their receivers but it's like because it's Harbaugh, he's you just know how he's going to build his team, and he builds his team for the long term and not for like the flash.
yeah,
He's
and
more.
he's already made moves to prove that, right? I mean,
Yeah, definitely.
so yeah, I mean, no doubt, no doubt about it.
So I could see that for sure. But it would be, if it was anybody else, they'd be like, "Oh, take the receiver. You just got rid of, Keenan Allen. Why wouldn't you take the young receiver and
Yeah.
just
Well, they
reload?"
have a big need. I mean, they have a big need at O line too. Because like my whole thing is
Mhm.
like if your O line sucks, your skill position players really don't matter as much. They just don't. Like
Yeah,
they just really don't. Um, but there's also always the chance that like the tackle that you draft isn't very good. You know.
right. Yeah,
But
yeah, like really.
at least you have the right, and that can go for any position. But at least you have the right philosophy, in my opinion, if you do it that way.
Yeah, yeah,
All right, Jeremy. Well, let's wrap this up. But I appreciate it, man. This was awesome. Definitely,
yeah.
let's do this again. Thanks for joining as always, man. It's an honor having you on, and
Appreciate it.
yeah, have a good rest of your evening. Hopefully, you guys enjoyed. Like, comment, subscribe if you haven't already. Show my boy Jeremy some love on all different platforms. I think he had shared some of his information um, on the last episode. Remind me again, it's Jeremy Sean. What is it?
On YouTube, it's Jeremy Sean A, all one word. I didn't put my last name on originally way back in the day, and then it's just kind of
And
stuck.
it's Sean SHAWN.
SEAN.
SEAN. All right. So
Yeah,
Jeremy Sean A. Um,
yeah. And then
on YouTube.
and I think on Twitter it's just my full name, Jeremy Otten, Auten.
Cool. Awesome. I appreciate it, man. Like I said, thanks again
Cool.
for joining. This has been fun. And
Yeah, we'll have to
we'll
do a
definitely stay in
post draft
contact, discuss the draft, and we'll definitely do a post draft one for sure.
for sure. Awesome, man.
Cool, buddy.
That
All
was
right. Have a good day,
have a
man.
good
I'll see you.
bye.